should be ministering to me. You bring the ones that I should be ministering to me, because if we don't do that, we'll be so busy with the bucket bumpers that we'll never have time to reach the ones that need help or want help. See, some people are professional time consumers. Game players. But we can pray and we can say, Father, show me where I can reach out, where I can help and have the maximum amount of benefit, where I can cause people to be able to see Jesus that wouldn't see him otherwise. See, the religious people, they came around Jesus and they crowded around and they were spending time and they had filled the whole house and the power of God was present to heal and none of them was getting healed. Why? They didn't want anything. They just want to take up time. But then those that needed help crawled up, ripped the roof open, dropped one down in front of them, and she said, oh, okay, here's one that needs help. And religious people will still play those same tricks today often. See to it that you're busy enough that you don't have time to do the work of the gospel. Well, Pastor, isn't that the same thing? No, it's not the same thing. There's a difference. Now, I'm not being hard on them. I'm not trying to be hard on them. I'm just saying, God has given you talent. He's given you a certain amount of resources. Use them to make impact on this world. See, remember, a part of us will never die. Our bodies go into the grave, but our spirits will go to either heaven and hell. But the influence that we have on others people's lives will never die. How we influence those people around us can touch people for generations. One of the people that I would like to remember even just this morning is Pastor Jerry's grandma. Her great-grandchildren still talk about when they went to Grandma's house. Her great-grandchildren. The stories keep getting passed down when the family gets together. Who was this woman? She must have been something. Oh, she was something. She wasn't very big on the outside, but she was a chihuahua on the inside. Well, who was she? She was a widow. She wore her kerchief. She did her chores. She lived her life. And she found ways to reach out and help people. Always. Now, we were there that one time as we were leaving. She goes, here. She knew I liked homemade butter. So she had like a pound of homemade butter. She says, you take this, take this. And I'm thinking, here's this woman that's gone out there and milked cows at 6 a.m, separated them, shook that cream until it became butter. This wasn't something you went down to the store and bought. Now here, you take this. I know you like it. I think of my grandmother Buhler. Sweet little old lady. Lived in her little apartment with her kerchief and her apron and her hairnet. About as Mennonite looking as you could get. But she touched people's lives because she had time for them. When I was in high school and I was going through a phase and I was a little bit embarrassed that was my grandmother. She looked so ethnic. And then one day, one of my friends at school, and she was like one of the popular girls, and she comes out and she goes, Ben, she says, your grandma lived down in Spruce Woods Manor? Yes, she does. Oh, she says, I had to make a delivery there the other day. What a sweet lady, she goes. You could feel the peace on her when you were talking to her. Now, this friend of mine was probably as far removed from a grandmother as two women could be. In manner of dress, in Christian conviction, in style, and But my grandmother would be able to reach out to her somehow and bring the love of God, this peace of God, into her life. That made a big enough impression that she came back to tell me, "Is that your grandma? What a sweet lady." Which legacy do we want to leave? You know, I picture my grandmother, and I have no doubt she knew she was on her way to heaven. She knew that that's where she was going. We talked about it many times. In fact, I went to visit her yet. Every time I came back from Alberta after I left home, I always stopped in to see my grandma Buhler. One of the people was always on my list. There's lots of people I grew up with that... But Grandma Buhler, I always had to make sure I would go see her. And I came back that one summer. I was home and stopped in to see Grandma, and we were talking. And I says, "Well, Grandma," I says, "we'll see you at Christmas." She goes, "No, you won't." I wasn't a Christian. I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I'll be coming out and I'll see you then." She says, "No, you won't." Okay. I said, "Well, yeah, Grandma." I said, "I'll be coming out at Christmas time. We'll see you then." She says, "No." She says, "This fall I'm going home." I says, "Grandma, you are home." She's losing the fact that she's not on the farm anymore. She looks at me and she goes, "No, I mean home." October, I got a phone call. Grandma had passed away. She went home. Wasn't scary. When Mom phones to tell me, I just laughed. It's almost, I says, "That's funny." She told me that last time I went to see her, that this fall she was going home. Well, what happened? She was visiting with my other grandmother, my mother and one aunt, and the four of them ladies are sitting there visiting. And she looked at us, she says, "Well, girls, it's been nice talking to you again." Fell off the chair. Time to go home now. Had coffee, let's go. You know, we look at this and we have, in our society, we've been so caught up in thinking, well, death, that's so scary. It's the big end all. It's just a step. And then we get to really live. Do I expect to see my grandma again? I'm expecting to be the first person that I see when I get to heaven. What legacy are we leaving? When we talk about Grandma Buhler, last time we got together, one of the things that they heard different cousins talk about was going to Grandma's house. Why? She left a legacy. People talked about her. People remembered her. So how are we going to influence those around us? How are we going to influence the next generation after we're gone? When it's all been said and done, how will we be remembered? Dorcas lived her life in such a way that she could stand before her Maker and say, "I did the best I could with what you gave me. I was something. I did something. I left something." It's Mother's Day. Dorcas is an example of a good mother, a good woman. And many mothers around the world have followed Dorcas' example by being something, by doing something, and by leaving something. In fact, most children, when they look back, they remember mom and dad's influence or mom's influence much more than dad's. Usually. Why? Because mom's there. A good mother is an unsurpassed blessing, and the Proverbs 31:28 says, "Her children shall rise up and call her blessed." So I found an acrostic which reveals the strength, the character, and the greatness of motherhood. It reveals the characteristics of a good mother. And it starts out with M is for meekness. A good mother is humble before God. She praises God for her children and for their accomplishments. She prays for their protection, guidance, and direction for their children.